Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to Book Trek 2023. This is the latest incarnation of a BookTube event that was created by Vin at Revenant Reads a couple of years ago to celebrate Star Trek fiction. And I intended to celebrate Star Trek fiction every day, all summer long. This event is going on until the end of August. And it's a blast to revisit this stuff or to find new stuff. But the first month I was making a video all the time, and I started to feel a little self-conscious because it's not my event, and yet I'm making 10 times the videos. So I slacked off then, and then a big research and writing project that I agreed to in the spring suddenly became horribly real and needed huge amounts of time and eventually blotted out everything for a little bit. But that project is now done, and my brief flirtation with self-consciousness is over. So I'll be making Star Trek videos for the rest of the month. And I've been basically doing these things, randomly, just pick a book of some kind, new or old to me, for my night's reading. And last night I picked one that is from the 1990s, I think 1998 or 99, something like that. I remember reading this and not thinking much of it at the time, so perfect fodder for a Book Trek reread. It's the original series novel by Pam Sargent and George Zebrowski called Across the Universe. Typical terrible cover here, just these old Star Trek books, I swear. There were, this is just cheap. That's the reason this was done. That's the reason all of these covers were done this way. Take some sort of a vaguely photoshopped still from the show or the movies and slap it on another vaguely photoshopped still. When then, as now, there were thousands of really talented artists who, if you'd sent them a synopsis of the book, they would have given you an original cover for a song. But instead we get this. But anyway, this is a familiar story. There are a couple of familiar things in here. I find that in this read-along, I didn't really mind it so much. I thought this was it's a very easy Star Trek read. Not all of them, believe it or not, are. But this one's a very easy one, where Jim Kirk's Enterprise, in the first 5-year mission, encounters a spaceship, that has a sleeper crew on board. So again, a very familiar idea, straight from the original series episode, Space Seed, where they meet Khan Noonien Singh and his crew of genetically engineered Supermen. The people on board the Stephen Hawking are not genetically engineered. They fled from Earth 15 years before World War III. So in the 21st century, in the early 21st century. Mention is made in this book a couple of times of Colonel Green. No mention is made of Donald Trump. But they flee before the end. Before Earth briefly, for a period, became just a radioactive tribal wasteland. Out of those ashes rose the conviction to be better and to make the Federation. But at the time when these people left, that was not true. There's a handful of them, a group, about the same number as on Space Seed, and the Enterprise finds them. They're still alive. They're in relatively good health. And the Enterprise brings them on board in order for Dr. McCoy to bring them back to health. And Kirk has a meeting. He has a conference meeting with, his heads of department in order to talk about what we should do. What is this? What can you tell us about this? There is a historian, an Enterprise historian on board who can tell him some of what's going on, some of what the Hawking secrets may be. These colonists blasted off from Earth in order to make a long journey to an exoplanet that their instruments had told them is Earth-like uninhabitable. And Kirk hears this from them, from their leader, Leander Cortez. He hears this from their leader and immediately sets Spock to figuring out what the story is there. What are the details? What world were they headed for? And what do we know about it? And has somebody else claimed it in the centuries since? And they find out. Kirk says there isn't any Earth-like... He tells the colonists there isn't any Earth-like planet circling the star that you were headed towards. And Leander Cortez and his people say, no, you must be wrong. Our information was correct. The way they say it, our information was correct, is a little suspect in retrospect. That's not what you would say if you had done the information yourself. But they say our information was certainly correct. We couldn't have been wrong about that. And Kirk tells them, you weren't wrong. There were planets around that star, but they were chopped up and eaten by a gigantic alien artifact. The artifact that he mentions, Matt Decker, from the great Star Trek episode where Kirk faces that planet killer, the Doomsday Machine. So that's a very interesting thing. That there would be that long, tenuous connection between that episode and this novel, that these colonists planned on that planet being there. And it would have been there if it hadn't been destroyed by this weird creature, this weird mechanism. Naturally, Kirk and his crew want to settle these people. They want, let's find you a home. There are plenty of Federation outposts that won't be quite so technologically overwhelming as Earth itself would be, but that will welcome new settlers and that maybe help you to gradually readjust to life in this century. And while they're headed to one of those planets, Scotty and Spock, of course, do a thorough look-through of the Stephen Hawking, and they find something that they can't believe that Leander Cortez and his colonists wouldn't know that they would find. Why didn't they mention it when they know that our technology will be able to find it? And the thing they find, buried deep in the Hawking, and clearly an attempt was made to shield it from any kind of detection, is a bomb, a nuclear bomb. So did the colonists pack a bomb and heavily shield it from detection as self-protection? A weapon that your enemies can't see is not self-protection. But did they do that, or did they do it for some other reason? And did they have a right to take it, or did they not? And is this their ship, or is it not? You have that plot line percolating along with the dangers of the planet where they are eventually settled. So you get a fairly fast-paced adventure here. It's a lot talky, and it's a little predictable. But I didn't mind that this time around at all. This is the sort of thing that I guess is commonplace in the 23rd century, is that people from the past are coming forward into the future on a regular basis. So there was a kind of what's the word I want? Procedural element to the first 2/3 of this book, and then there's a climax. Then the action starts to pick up on the planet, because there's a menace on the planet, and the colonists themselves represent a menace that has to be gradually peeled back, like the layers of an onion. And all of that comes together in the last 60 pages. So that I didn't remember. Maybe I didn't get that far the first time I read this. Maybe I just gave up on it as just another Planet of the Week thing, not worth my time. But this time it was. I read to the end, and I'm glad I did, because that climax was pretty well done. Totally predictable, but pretty well done. So I went back to, for Book Trek, I went back to the original series, My Star Trek, and read or maybe reread a book that I once liked. That's a perfectly legitimate use of my time for Book Trek. I thought that one of the most interesting moments in the book, it's a minor thing, but one of the characters on board the Stephen Hawking is a kind of offshoot ancestor of Ensign Chekhov. And when they get together and talk, it's never nothing much is ever made of it. It has one crucial little reveal at the end of the book, but even that is not a big reveal. Nothing much is made of it, but when they get to talking, Chekhov and his ancestor both refer, just offhandedly, as a matter of settled fact, to the greatest Russian writer of them all, Dostoevsky, not Tolstoy. Which I bridled about that. I don't think I remember that from the first time, but what are you going to do? There's no accounting for taste. So that is our Book Trek book for today. Who knows what the spin of the wheel will do tonight? We shall see. Who knows? It could be something old. Could be something I've read a million times. So something brand new to me. I think the only yardstick I want to use here for the rest of Book Trek, I think there's one thing I've learned, really come home in this episode of this iteration of Book Trek, is that I don't like extended universe Star Trek. I don't like the kind of thing we talked about yesterday, where the books are relying on other people's books, and you have to read them all, and each one is a mosaic, and the authors don't care about bringing you up to speed. They're just going to assume you've read those books and are keeping meticulous track of this slowly expanded universe. I find that I don't like that, whether it's Star Trek or Star Wars or anything. It's such a fundamental abrogation of the writer's responsibility that I end up annoyed by them instead of anything else. So I won't be doing that, I don't think. But everything else, fair game. So I will wrap this up now, and we'll see what I come up with tomorrow. Thank you, Book Trek.